headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from Cancun on the Yucatan Peninsula in eastern Mexico. We're here at the United Nations Climate Conference, known as COP16. It's been 1 year since the UN talks in Copenhagen, the largest climate summit in history, with more than 120 world leaders attending. The Copenhagen negotiations collapsed with no binding agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and combat global warming. Instead, rich countries led by the United States met behind closed doors and attempted to impose an agreement on poor countries known as the Copenhagen Accord. This year at the COP16 in Cancun, the ghost of Copenhagen looms, and the expectations for any real results are low. Just 20 heads of state from developing countries are expected to come to Cancun. No G20 countries expected to send a leader. The Cancun talks opened on November 29th, and after 1 week, the fate of the negotiations is uncertain. At the center of the debate is the future of the Kyoto Protocol, the only treaty that binds almost 40 rich nations to cut their greenhouse gases until 2012 and commits parties to an extension. Last week, Japan said it would not sign up for a second period of the Kyoto Protocol unless the United States and China also sign on. This is Japanese climate negotiator Matsuo Sakaba.
Kyoto mechanism, Kyoto Protocol itself, represents only 27% of global emission. It's a very relatively small part of the global emissions. So the continuation of Kyoto Protocol in our fight against climate change is losing its impact. So Japanese position is to seek the more global framework involving with the participation of all major emitters to, in a legally binding way, after 2012. That is the ultimate goal or aim of our government. And
the United States has long been criticized for never having ratified the Kyoto Protocol, despite being historically the world's biggest polluter. This is U.S. climate change envoy Todd Stern.
I mean, it may be that the problems with Kyoto completely tie this conference up, but I am very hopeful that that doesn't happen, because I think it would be a huge mistake. With respect to you asked, would the United States be happy to have a 2012 world without a legally binding agreement? Is that a question of being happy? It's a question of trying to see what can be done in the real world that can make progress on this issue.
The ALBA group of 9 Latin American countries threatened to withdraw from the talks if Kyoto is abandoned. Claudia Salerno is Venezuela's lead climate chief negotiator. She's joining us here in Cancun. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Thank you.
It's very good to have you with us. Can you just explain what has taken place over the last week? This weekend, the ominous discussions of, is this summit going to really be subverted? Is it going to collapse because of Kyoto?
Well, we hope not. Actually, our position is that the continuity of Kyoto should not be controversial, because it's a legally binding agreement, so we have to continue. It doesn't have an expiration date. It has a first commitment period, and it is supposed to have a second one. So it's not a political discussion or a ideological discussion like some countries actually pointed us. Is actually a legal one. The continuation of Kyoto cannot be put on negotiator or negotiations or condition.
Why is Kyoto so important to you?
Kyoto is important for the world because it's the only legally binding agreement we have to actually control emissions from the big countries, and actually the historical responsibles of what we are living right now. So it's not a matter of what it is important for ALBA countries. I think it is important for the world to have them bind by obligations regarding the cut of their emissions.
Talk about the significance of the countries we've heard are talking about not renewing. Japan is saying this, and of course that's very significant given Kyoto Protocol was hammered out in Kyoto. Australia, why?
I cannot talk in their behalf. What I know, but Japan, he says that Kyoto just represents 28 or 27% of the emissions, and that he would like to have an agreement, a bigger agreement, having everybody on board. What we reply to them is like, first, the convention has the 100% of the emitters there, and we want to think that all the negotiations that we are having under the Bali Roadmap are actually meant to involve in a different way the emissions of the developing countries. That's why we signed actually in 2007 the Bali Action Plan. So developing countries never said that they didn't had a part to play in this responsibility. They were saying just that the responsibility is, and it has to be different. So secondly, the second argument for Japan, and we actually say it all in plenaries and in private talkings, is that actually Kyoto has a resource for those countries that doesn't want to be bound by it, which is Article 27, who actually allows whichever country wants to just get out or their commitments to denounce it. But politically, they have to take the decision to denounce the Kyoto Protocol and to get out in a legally way and not try to plot and to sabotage the whole negotiation just because they don't want to continue. They can take the decision of not continuing because Kyoto have provisions legally to do that, but they have to take the political responsibility to do it in an appropriate way and not sabotaging the whole process.